Alright, I'm back with another Destiny video, and I'm going to rewind back till yesterday. Things kind of got overwhelmed by that rather large TWAB with all the sandbox changes and raid stuff, but I didn't want to completely brush over the Solstice reveal, even though you can kind of sum up Solstice by saying, you know, if you liked last year's Solstice, and pretty much the year before that, this is the same thing. We are in the third year of doing EAZ farming rotations where you fight different groups of enemies on the map, kill a boss, and then race around to open chests with currency and prizes and things inside of it. You will get armor sets that you gradually upgrade through doing certain achievements. Some of these are based on EAZ things themselves. I think some of them are based on stuff outside of the game where there's like a top tier of like kind of harder things like nightfalls and raids and things at the very high end to get kind of the final form version of these. And then if you want the elemental glows, this has been a constant source of drama since they did and did not work in various ways or were not ornaments. The elemental glows can be purchased in Eververse, I believe, for Bright Dust or Silver, and supposedly they're going to work this time, and they're introducing all the old glows that they forgot to add into the transmog system. So, this is kind of a larger conversation about how I haven't really loved a Destiny event in a very long time because nothing really ever seems new. We had this same problem with Festival of the Lost, and by the third go-through of the Infinite Forest or the Haunted Forest, you're kind of just over it to a certain extent. And not only that, but that was eventually used in the Revelry too in like a kind of separate form. The EAZ I do fundamentally think is a cool zone, a cool area, but this kind of yearly grind of like, okay, kill 100 EAZ bosses and open 50 chests, and like just having it be pretty much the exact same process year after year is kind of exhausting. And I don't know, maybe there will be changes to the actual event itself, like new bosses and stuff, but nothing really has changed that much between years 1 and year 2. They did some new stuff with like elemental bonuses and such with orbs and matching your damage type and stuff, and it seems like they're doing that again. But for the most part, I would expect it to operate pretty much the exact same way. And I felt this way with Guardian Games too. Guardian Games did change things a little bit in terms of how it was assembled, but there was no core activity to that other than a strike playlist that you really didn't need to play for any significant reason. Here, I was hoping maybe the EAZ would evolve in some way and, you know, maybe change the objectives, but it does seem to be kind of the same thing that we've had this whole time. Is there anything new? The only thing I can think of and pull out from the article they published is it seems like the elemental effects you'll be able to manually activate now instead of, I think, when you hit like 30 elemental orbs or something, your thing would just auto-activate, which means it would often go to waste, which was kind of pointless. So that's a small change. A larger change is the addition of a new shotgun. I believe it's called the Compass Rose, I'm pretty sure, which is a specific shotgun for Solstice. And I'm trying to think if we've had Solstice weapons before, or if it's always just been the armor. I can't remember a Solstice weapon before, but I could be wrong. I think this is some sort of slug shotgun. It's a reskin of an existing model. I think first in, last out or something, but I don't know how exciting a single shotgun can be. Event weapons are sort of hit or miss. There was like a time where like Horror Story was good for like 2 seconds, and but most event weapons, unless they're like a full-on event exotic, like Heir Apparent for Guardian Games at one time, I would say most of the time they're kind of forgettable. I think the Vow was actually kind of good, but now Crimson Days doesn't exist anymore either. The armor itself is new. Reactions to the armor seem kind of all over the place. I don't love the armor, personally, like my fashion sense coming to life here. I liked the glows of last year's better, like the kind of cracked armor and like the glowing horns and stuff. And like there were glows, but it was just kind of in select spots. This is like you are covered in glows from head to toe, like so many glows to the point where I don't really even have a sense of what the armor itself looks like because there's so many glows covering every inch of it, and like it's like kind of too much for me. So I'm actually kind of curious to see what just the base armor looks like, because that could be better than it looks with the glows, honestly. So I don't know. These sets don't really jump out to me as ones that are kind of my favorite over the past few years of this. My ultimate dream would be for them to get to a point where they were able to do what they did in year one. I really enjoyed the heroic story missions that they did for year one, which was a very kind of unique kind of challenge and more in keeping with the spirit of the event, which is about like reliving your past year of victories. And it's a little weird because so many, story missions have been eliminated from the game, and a lot of the story missions we do still have are tied to paid expansions. Not to mention, also, it is like a lot more work, I'm sure, to develop kind of heroic story missions and like make sure you have all the right kinds of enemies and making the challenge level right, making the modifiers right. Like, I'm sure that is more work than it sounds like it is, and certainly more work than just let's bring the EAZ back and probably not change anything. But these events have felt, I guess, kind of phoned into me. I do sort of understand it, because what hasn't been phoned in is, I think, the actual content of the seasons. We have really seen a dramatic increase in the quality of the content of the seasons. So it's not like we're not getting, live updates and live event type things that aren't good. It's just that the events, like the holiday events, are not especially good. And it mostly seems centered around getting people to burn silver or bright dust on some armor sets, and maybe one or two prizes you can earn. One of them is usually going to be like a ghost shell or maybe a sparrow or something. And then if we're lucky, we get a new weapon like this. But who knows how significant this one will be. I just feel like they need a different philosophy for events going forward. But it is hard to balance given how temporary they are and how much work they can be to execute. Like, I feel like when they weren't doing live seasons to this extent, they had maybe more bandwidth and resources to have the live team doing that kind of stuff, which is how we got Sparrow Racing back in the day. And like, everyone's like, bring Sparrow Racing back. But like, they were designing like tons of, full armor sets, like racing sparrows, full courses for Sparrow Racing. Like, that was a lot of work. And, but that was in an era when Destiny was not doing seasons. There was like almost nothing going on in Destiny except the team working on the next expansion. Now the team is working on the next expansion and the next season and the next like 3 seasons and live events. So I kind of understand why events are going by the wayside. That said, they still feel like they are going by the wayside. And so every time they kind of get announced, it's just like, this is 95% what we did last year with some slight variations. So I don't know. I just don't know if events are going to be a priority going forward. I am curious to see what happens this year with Festival of the Lost, because they sunset Mercury. So you would think that you would not be able to have the Haunted Forest come back again. Again, I don't know how the game is designed, but maybe there's some like little pocket instance where they bring it back. But I think that would be the 4th year of the Haunted Forest, which like, I'm good. Like, I don't want to do that again. So I do wonder if they're going to come up with something else for that. And then my prediction has always been that the EDZ is probably going to get vaulted if in fact the Witch Queen brings Old Chicago. It's another kind of forest-filled Earth zone. So I would be surprised to see EDZ staying around. And if that happens, I would assume the EAZ might go with it if it's in kind of the same area. So then maybe this could be the last time we see the EAZ. When they introduced the EAZ, I was like kind of all about it. I just kind of wanted the concept to evolve over time. But then you have the people like, okay, if they replaced the EAZ before they gave us a new Crucible map after 2 years, there would be some rioting in that regard too. So all in all, I'm not the most impressed with what they're showing off here, unless the shotgun has some like crazy, insane rolls that I can't even imagine. I don't really know how much I'm going to care about this event. I do feel sort of obligated to grind the armor sets just because I like having those in my collections, and like now with Transmog especially, like getting armor sets is more valuable than before. But like, it is going to be a grind. It is probably not going to be that enjoyable for the most part. But I do like EAZ over the Haunted Forest and the other forest events they've done, and Guardian Games, which was kind of nothing. So we'll see. it's going to be an interesting run this time. I don't know if my prediction will pan out and like the games or the Solstice will get interrupted by some sort of disaster, or if we're saving all future story developments for the epilogue, which will take place after this event ends, I think the week after on the roadmap. So we'll see. It might just kind of be 4 weeks of Solstice with not really much going on, but we will have to wait and find out. But all right, so I think that's all I got for now on Solstice, and I will talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching.